Let's get some analysis now with Alexey Muraviev, who's an Associate Professor of National Security and Strategic Studies at Curtin University. He joins us now from Perth, Australia. Really good to have you back with us, Professor. As we heard, the White House says Russia is forming plans to annex more parts of Ukraine, repeating a playbook that it used in 2014 when it annexed Crimea. Do you believe that is what's happening right now?
Without a doubt. I think the way how the Russians paved their way into more territory, particularly in Ukraine's south, clearly suggests they are not there temporarily, rather than they're setting themselves up for good. They're changing everything, ranging from the banking system to the mobile networks, to even car plate numbers. They transforming the education system. They are moving the area into Russia's national currency, the ruble zone. And these are all indications that the Russians are not going to give in or give up these territories, regardless of what the referendum may be saying. And clearly, the Russians are not going to release results which may not be favorable to them. So we can consider this to be a done deal, unless there's going to be a successful counteroffensive mounted by the Ukrainian military, something that Kyiv was promising and discussing and debating about for weeks now.
That's right, and we know that Ukrainian defences have held up quite well against Russian forces to some extent, but Russian forces have really doubled down on the east where these provinces are. So do you believe, in terms of the end game, is Russia looking to expand its territory in the east, and would Russia consider that a victory in this ongoing conflict?
Look, I think this is where it gets really interesting, because I think Vladimir Putin caught himself entrapped in his own promises that he made right at the start of the campaign, or even prior to the campaign, where he made it all about Donbass, where he effectively said that Russia will stand by the breakaway provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk. Russia will see them being liberated from Ukraine's control and protect and defend them. And these are the most fortified areas along the line of confrontation that emerged between Russia and Ukraine since the escalation of crisis back in 2014. So the Russians and the Russian military have little choice but to continue to ponder those heavy fortified positions, simply because they have to meet the promise made by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. And whilst Putin refuses to increase the size of the Russian grouping that is fighting the Ukrainians in the country, and that's the paradox, the Russian invasion force is significantly smaller numerically compared to the size of the Ukrainian defending force. The Russians clearly missing, if we take purely military strategic perspective, on good opportunities to achieve more strategic gains in the country's south, or trying to take on Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, simply because they have to maneuver limited resources that Putin made available to the Russian military and concentrate them in one area. And that also explains the little progress that Russia has made in terms of territorial gains, because they have to break through heavily fortified positions of Ukraine in Donbass region, overcome Ukraine's resistance, because the Ukrainians keep sending more reinforcements, including advanced military hardware they receive from the West, into the region. As a result, they are making frog steps instead of significant leaps.
Okay, now we know that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky really has been quite a determined leader in this conflict, surprising many around the world, including in his own country. But do you believe that Zelensky will achieve his aims? He says he wants to retake Crimea, for example, something that a place that Russia has held for the last 8 years. Are those ambitions realistic, given the resources that Ukraine currently has?
Look, I mean, I'm afraid that Volodymyr Zelensky, with all the good intentions that he has, finds himself in similar entrapment as Vladimir Putin, in terms he made these promises, as well as his predecessors, Petro Poroshenko did, with regards to as the head of the state and the supreme commander-in-chief, he obviously has to fight for his country and for his country's lands and territory. So he cannot really say, we will have to give up on Crimea, or we have to give up on Donbass, because it will not go down well with his electorate, especially after these years of confrontation, after the years of promises that this land will be returned to Ukraine one way or another. So when he talks about this, obviously he follows the same established narrative as he followed over the past few years, and he cannot back down. But the reality is Ukraine doesn't have strategic advantage on the battlefield. It has more firepower, not firepower, it has more numerical power on the battlefield. It is getting more firepower from the West, but the Russians hold the initiative. The Russians still manage to overwhelm Ukraine with their offensive firepower, with their air superiority, with their dominance, with heavy artillery, more long-range missile strike capability, the list goes on, etc., etc. So in the current circumstances, unless Ukraine will either revolutionize the way how it fights, or NATO will intervene militarily, the promise of taking back Crimea, leave alone other parts of Ukraine, will remain nothing more than a promise.
Okay, Alexey Muraviev, we will have to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us on TRT World.